In a dimly lit warehouse on the outskirts of Chicago, the air was thick with tension, a palpable silence enveloping the space as shadows danced across the walls. Flickering overhead lights cast anxious glows on the faces of those gathered, revealing the hardened expressions of men accustomed to a life of danger and deceit. It was here that Leela found herself, a place where the line between loyalty and betrayal blurred and life hung precariously in the balance. What would you sacrifice for love? The question echoed in Leela's mind, reverberating with intensity as she stood at the edge of the room, her heart pounding with uncertainty. This was not just a question. It was a challenge she had never anticipated when she first crossed paths with Marco, the notorious Mafia boss known for his ruthless reputation and cold demeanor. Despite the chaos surrounding them, a magnetic pull drew her towards him, igniting a chemistry that was impossible to ignore. Leela had always prided herself on her independence, carving out a life in a city that thrived on shadows and whispers. As a freelance journalist, she had witnessed the underbelly of Chicago firsthand, exposing corruption and crime with her pen. But Marco was different. He was a man who commanded respect and fear in equal measure, a man whose mere presence could silence a room. When their eyes first met across the crowded warehouse, an electric charge sparked between them, a silent acknowledgement of the dark path each had chosen. The initial encounter was a whirlwind of adrenaline and desire, a dance of words laced with flirtation and challenge. Marco's voice was smooth, like velvet, as he spoke, his eyes glinting with mischief. "You shouldn't be here, Leela. This isn't a place for someone like you." But instead of retreating, she leaned in closer, igniting a fire within that she hadn't known existed. "I can handle myself," she retorted, a hint of defiance in her tone. The thrill of their banter felt intoxicating, even as the danger loomed large. Yet beneath the surface of their playful exchanges lay a dark current of unease, a tension that hinted at the storm brewing just beneath the surface of their burgeoning connection. As days turned into weeks, Leela found herself pulled deeper into Marco's world, a web spun from loyalty and fear. She learned of the complexities of his life, the rivalries that simulated a constant state of war, the betrayals that lurked behind every corner, and the sacrifices that came with the territory. With each revelation, her heart wrestled with the growing affection she felt for him, mixed with a nagging sense of dread. The conflict within her intensified as she grappled with the reality of loving a man whose life was built on the very principles she had spent years fighting against. And yet, every stolen moment they shared added another layer to their connection. Late-night drives through the gritty streets of Chicago, the city lights reflecting the turmoil in her soul, became their sanctuary. Marco would reveal fragments of his past, moments of vulnerability slipping through the cracks of his hardened exterior. In those fleeting instances, Leela caught glimpses of the man beneath the Mafia facade, a man burdened by choices and haunted by losses. But the more she learned, the more the stakes escalated. Leela's journalistic instincts kicked in as she uncovered hidden truths about Marco's empire, secrets that threatened to unravel their fragile bond. The tension mounted when she discovered the extent of his involvement in the criminal underworld, the lives he had destroyed in his relentless pursuit of power. Could she truly love a man like this? The question lingered like a shadow, casting doubt on everything they had built together. As Leela navigated the treacherous waters of her emotions, she faced external threats that loomed larger than life. Rival gangs began to close in, their ambitions clashing with Marco's, and Leela found herself caught in the crossfire. The once thrilling life she had chosen now felt like a dangerous game, one where the rules changed at a moment's notice. She felt the weight of every choice pressing down on her, the realization that her love for Marco might come at a price she wasn't ready to pay. It was during one of those chaotic nights, when the streets shimmered with a dangerous allure, that Leela reached a breaking point. She stood on the precipice of a decision, torn between her heart and her principles. In the depths of her turmoil, she found herself standing in front of Marco, her voice trembling with emotion. "I can't keep doing this, Marco. I can't ignore the truth anymore." His expression darkened, frustration flickering across his features. "You don't understand what's at stake, Leela. You're playing a dangerous game, one that could cost you everything." The intensity of his gaze bore into her, igniting a firestorm of conflicting feelings within. But the more Marco tried to push her away, the more determined she became. "I'm not afraid of the truth. I need to know who you really are." The air crackled with tension as she spoke, her heart pounding in her chest. Lila was no longer just a passive observer in this world. She was an active participant, and she was willing to confront the darkness head-on. As the conflict deepened, Lila's relationships with those around her also began to shift. Friends became distant, wary of the choices she was making, while others were drawn into the chaos, their loyalties tested. She sought solace in her journal, pouring her heart onto the pages, seeking clarity in the midst of the storm. Each word was a cathartic release, a way to navigate the conflicting emotions that swirled within her. In the backdrop of this emotional turmoil, the gritty landscape of Chicago became a character in its own right. The city pulsed with life, its streets alive with the sounds of honking horns and distant sirens, a constant reminder of the danger that lurked around every corner. The warehouses and alleyways whispered secrets of the past, their shadows heavy with love and loss. Lila found herself wandering through these streets, searching for answers, the cold wind biting at her skin as she wrestled with her choices. It was during one of these late-night escapades that she encountered Marco again, his presence like a magnet drawing her closer. He stood beneath the flickering streetlight, a silhouette of power and danger, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he admonished, his voice low and gravelly. "I'm not afraid of the darkness, Marco," she replied, a defiant spark igniting within her. "I'm not afraid of you." And in that moment, she realized that her love for him was intertwined with her own sense of self, a complicated tapestry of emotions that defied easy categorization. But as their connection deepened, so did the risks. Lila felt the weight of her choices bearing down on her, each moment spent with Marco pulling her further into the abyss. She found herself torn between the man who ignited her passion and the moral compass that had guided her life. The stakes had never been higher, and the question of what she was willing to sacrifice for love loomed larger than ever. As the night wore on, the impending storm felt almost tangible, a harbinger of the chaos that awaited them both. The world around them was a dangerous place, and the choices they made would determine not only their fates, but the fates of those they cared about. Leela's heart raced as she contemplated her next move, knowing that the answer she sought lay just beyond her grasp. With every heartbeat, the tension escalated, and the realization struck her. Love could be both a balm and a burden, a source of strength and a path to destruction. And as she stood on the brink of a decision that would change everything, Leela knew that the time for choice was drawing near. Would she dare to embrace the darkness for the sake of love, or would she fight to preserve the light within her? The answer awaited her, shrouded in the shadows of the city she had come to know so well, a city that mirrored the complexities of her heart. And in that moment, she understood that the journey ahead would test her in ways she could never have imagined. The stakes were high, but so was the promise of love, a love that could either save her or consume her entirely. The gritty streets of Chicago pulsed with a life of their own, shadows dancing in the alleyways as Leela maneuvered through the evening's haze. The air was thick with the scent of rain-soaked asphalt and the distant echo of sirens, a stark reminder that danger lurked around every corner. As the neon lights flickered overhead, she felt the weight of her choices pressing down on her. With each step, the conflict within her deepened, mirroring the tumultuous world she had become entangled in. Marco was more than just a mafia boss. He was a paradox wrapped in enigma. His piercing gaze could ignite passion and fear in equal measure, and Leela found herself caught in the gravitational pull of his dark charisma. Yet the allure of his power came at a cost, one she was beginning to understand all too well. The allure of this life promised excitement but also threatened to consume her. The closer she got to Marco, the more she realized the lengths to which she would have to go to protect herself and him. Leela's heart raced as she recalled their last encounter. The way Marco's breath had mingled with her own, heavy with unspoken words and undeniable chemistry. But behind that allure lay the stark reality of the Mafia's world. She had seen the ruthlessness in his eyes when he dealt with enemies, the cold efficiency that sent shivers down her spine. How could she reconcile her growing feelings for him with the knowledge of his violent life? The question gnawed at her, a relentless reminder of the precarious balance she was trying to maintain. As she approached Marco's hideout, a nondescript building nestled in the heart of a crime-ridden neighborhood, her pulse quickened. The building loomed over her, an ominous fortress where secrets were exchanged and lives were bargained. She hesitated, her mind racing with the implications of her decision to step further into his world. Was she ready to embrace the darkness that came with her affection for him? The thought lingered like a specter, taunting her as she pushed through the heavy door. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with tension, a palpable energy that crackled in the air. Marco stood at the far end of the dimly lit room, his back turned to her as he spoke in hushed tones to a group of men around a table. The flickering candlelight cast shadows across his strong silhouette, accentuating the rugged lines of his face. Lila's heart fluttered at the sight of him, the familiarity of his presence washing over her like a soothing balm. But beneath that comfort lay the ever-present danger that defined his life, and now hers. "Leela?" he called without turning, his voice a low rumble that sent chills down her spine. "Come here." She approached cautiously, her emotions a whirlwind of excitement and fear. As she drew closer, the men turned their gaze upon her, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and disdain. She felt exposed, as if they could see straight through her facade of confidence. Marco turned to face her, and the moment their eyes locked, the world around them faded into a blur. It was as if time had paused, leaving only the two of them suspended in a moment that felt both electric and perilous. "Did you get my message?" Marco asked, his tone shifting from commanding to intimate, the flicker of vulnerability in his eyes momentarily disarming her. Lila swallowed hard, memories flooding her mind. The late-night phone calls, the whispered secrets, the way he had pulled her into his world with both a promise of passion and a warning of peril. "I did," she replied, her voice steady despite the tempest brewing inside her. It was a dangerous dance, one that could lead to her destruction or her salvation. But in that moment, all she could think about was the pull of his gravity, the way he made her feel alive amidst the chaos. Just then, the door burst open, shattering the intimacy of their moment. A man stormed in, his face twisted with anger, and Lila's heart dropped as she recognized him. It was one of Marco's rivals, a man known for his ruthless tactics and unyielding ambition. "What's going on here?" he barked, his eyes darting between Marco and Lila. The tension in the room shifted, a palpable threat hanging in the air as the atmosphere turned hostile. "Get out," Marco growled, his protective instincts kicking in as he stepped in front of Lila, shielding her from the man's glare. "This doesn't concern you." Lila's heart raced as she watched the confrontation unfold, the danger of Marco's world crashing down around them like a tidal wave. She felt a mix of fear and exhilaration, the adrenaline coursing through her veins. This was the life she had chosen, and now she had to face the consequences of her decision. Doesn't concern me? You've got a pretty little thing here, Marco, the rival sneered, his tone dripping with malice. What's she doing in a place like this? Lila felt her breath catch in her throat. The hostility in the air was suffocating, and she could feel the tension building, threatening to explode at any moment. Marco's jaw tightened, and she could see the flicker of rage in his eyes. "Back off," Marco warned, his voice low and dangerous. "You don't want to make this a problem." The rival laughed, a cold, mocking sound that sent chills down Lila's spine. "You think you can protect her? You're just a pawn in this game, Marco, and so is she." In that moment, Lila felt a surge of defiance rise within her. She was not a pawn. She was a woman who had made her choice, and she would stand by it no matter the cost. With a newfound determination, she stepped forward, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "I'm not afraid of you," she declared, her eyes locking on to the rivals. "I know what I'm getting into, and I won't back down." The room fell silent, the tension thickening as all eyes turned to her. Marco looked surprised, a mixture of admiration and concern flickering in his gaze. The rival's expression shifted, uncertainty flickering behind his bravado. "Is that so?" he said slowly, clearly taken aback by her boldness. "You think you can handle this life? You have no idea what you're up against." "I know more than you think," Lila replied, her voice unwavering. "I can handle whatever comes my way. I'm not going to let fear dictate my choices." Marco's expression softened, a hint of pride evident in his eyes. He stepped closer, his body radiating strength and protection. "Then let's show them what we're made of," he said, his voice low and fierce. With their combined strength, Lila felt invincible. As the rival reeled back, perhaps realizing that they were not as easily intimidated as he had expected, the atmosphere shifted once again. The power dynamics were changing, and Lila felt the thrill of rebellion coursing through her veins. She was ready to embrace the darkness that came with loving Marco, ready to fight for them both in a world that threatened to tear them apart. But as she stood there, side by side with Marco, she couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle was only just beginning. The stakes were higher than ever, and she was about to find out just how far she was willing to go for love. The intensity of the moment weighed heavily in the air, a palpable tension that crackled like static electricity between Lila and Marco. They stood there, side by side, as the remnants of their fight lingered in the dimly lit warehouse. The adrenaline still coursed through Lila's veins, but it was quickly overshadowed by the realization of what lay ahead. Marco's confession hung in the air like a storm cloud, and Lila's heart raced as she processed his words. "I betrayed you." Marco's voice was thick with regret, each syllable heavy with the weight of his confession. His dark eyes, usually so fierce and unyielding, flickered with vulnerability. Lila felt a pang of sympathy for him, even as the pain of betrayal surged through her. She understood the world he lived in, the moral complexities that twisted relationships into knots of loyalty and treachery. But betrayal? That was an entirely different beast. Lila looked at him, her brow furrowed in confusion. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile moment they were sharing. She could feel the blood trickling down her arm, a stark reminder of the fight they had just endured. But the physical pain paled in comparison to the emotional turmoil swirling inside her. Marco took a deep breath, his broad shoulders sagging slightly. "There's a price on your head, Lila. My enemies, they know what you mean to me. They're using you to get to me." His gaze dropped to the ground, shame coloring his features. "I thought I could keep you safe, but I only put you in more danger." The revelation struck Lila like a physical blow. A price on her head? The enormity of that thought sent chills down her spine. She had willingly stepped into the chaos of Marco's life, but now she was faced with the tangible consequences of her choice. The thrill of rebellion she had felt moments ago was replaced by a cold sense of dread. "So this is why you've been distant? Why you've kept me at arm's length?" Marco nodded, his jaw clenched. "I didn't want you to get hurt. I thought if I could keep you away from this life, you'd be safe. I didn't want to drag you into my world of violence and danger." Leela's heart ached at his words. She could see the conflict raging within him, the Mafia boss who was used to making ruthless decisions, and the man who cared deeply for her. "But you didn't trust me," she said, the hurt evident in her voice. "You treated me like I was fragile, like I couldn't handle the truth." Marco stepped closer, the space between them narrowing. "No, Leela, it was never about you being fragile. It was about wanting to protect you. The moment you walked into my life, everything changed." His voice softened as he spoke, revealing the depth of his feelings. "I never intended for you to get involved in this world, but now—" He hesitated, searching for the right words. "Now we're in it together," Leela finished for him, a spark of determination igniting within her. "I'm not going to run away, Marco. I chose this life when I chose you." Marco's eyes widened slightly, surprise mingling with admiration. "You don't understand the dangers, Leela. These are not just petty criminals. They're ruthless. They won't hesitate to hurt you to get to me." "But I'm not afraid," she replied, her voice strong and unwavering. "I'm more afraid of losing you. I won't let fear dictate my choices." Leela took a step forward, closing the distance between them completely. She could feel the heat radiating from his body, the strength that drew her in, despite the chaos surrounding them. As they stood nearly nose to nose, the world around them faded away. The warehouse, with its peeling paint and flickering lights, became a distant memory, and all that mattered was the connection they shared in that moment. "We're in this together, Marco," she said, her voice steady. "I'll fight for us, no matter what it takes." The fire in Lila's eyes ignited something within Marco. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair away from her face, his fingers lingering against her skin. "You're incredible," he murmured, all lacing his voice. "But you have to promise me you'll be careful. I can't lose you, not like this." "Then don't push me away," she replied, her heart racing at the vulnerability in his gaze. "Let me in. Let me help you fight back." For a moment, Marco hesitated, the weight of his choices pressing heavily upon him. But Lila's unwavering spirit sparked a flicker of hope in his heart. He had always been a man of control, a leader who made decisions based on strategy and survival. But Lila was different. She challenged him, forced him to confront his demons, and for the first time, he could see a path forward that didn't isolate himself for her protection. "All right," Marco finally said, his voice low and resolute. "We'll face this together." With that promise hanging in the air, they turned their attention to the chaos that lay ahead. The warehouse was not just a place of refuge. It was now a battleground where their relationship would be tested against the harsh realities of the criminal world. As they prepared to face their enemies, Lila felt a wave of determination wash over her. She would not be a pawn in this game. She would take control of her destiny. "We need a plan," she said, her mind racing with possibilities. "If they think they can intimidate us, they're sorely mistaken." Marco nodded, a newfound respect for her tenacity blooming within him. "You're right. We need to be strategic." He glanced around the warehouse, noting the various exits and potential hideouts. "I have some allies I can trust, but we need to move quickly. If they know where you are, we'll have to act before it's too late." Together, they began to strategize, mapping out their next moves with a mix of urgency and fierce determination. Lila felt invigorated by the adrenaline coursing through her veins, the thrill of danger mingling with her growing affection for Marco. This was her life now, and she would fight for it. As they worked side by side, Lila couldn't help but steal glances at Marco. His brow was furrowed in concentration, his jaw set with determination. He was a man transformed, and for the first time, she saw glimpses of the vulnerability he had kept hidden beneath his tough exterior. "Hey," she said suddenly, breaking the tension. "You know, you're not alone in this. You don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders." Marco paused, looking at her with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. "I know," he replied softly, "but it's hard to let go of that responsibility. I've spent my whole life protecting those I care about." "You don't have to protect me by pushing me away," Lila said, her voice firm yet gentle. "I'm right here, willing to stand beside you. We'll figure this out together." His gaze softened, and for a moment the walls he had built around himself began to crack. "You're something else, Lila," he said, a hint of admiration in his tone. "I've never met anyone like you." As they finished their planning, the reality of their situation loomed large. They were stepping into a world filled with uncertainty and danger, but they were doing it together. Lila felt a sense of purpose solidify within her as they prepared to face whatever came next. "Are you ready?" Marco asked, his voice steady but laced with concern. Lila took a deep breath, her heart racing with anticipation. "I was born ready." And with that, they stepped into the unknown, hand in hand, ready to confront the chaos that threatened to tear them apart. As they moved forward, Lila couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle was just beginning. They would have to navigate the treacherous waters of loyalty, sacrifice, and love, all while keeping their enemies at bay. As they exited the warehouse, the cool night air enveloped them, a stark contrast to the heat of the moment they had just shared. Lila glanced at Marco, their fingers intertwined, and felt a renewed sense of hope. They were in this together, and no matter what lay ahead, she would fight for their love, even if it meant facing the darkness head-on. In that moment, Lila understood that love was not just about the beautiful moments. It was about the battles fought and the sacrifices made. She was ready to embrace every part of it, even the parts that threatened to tear them apart. With Marco by her side, she knew they could withstand anything that came their way. As the night deepened, the tension crackled between Lila and Marco, hanging in the air like smoke from a gunshot. The chilling revelation of betrayal lingered in Lila's mind, a bitter pill to swallow. Marco's admission hit her hard, resonating through her very core. He had been her rock, the man she had risked everything for, yet here he was, confessing to actions that could shatter their fragile bond. "I betrayed you," he had whispered, his voice heavy with remorse, and despite the pain coursing through her veins, Lila didn't falter. "You were worth it," she had replied, a smile breaking through her tears, even as blood seeped from her side where the rival gang's attack had struck. The irony of her situation wasn't lost on her. She had fought tooth and nail for their love, and now she was literally bleeding for it. But in that moment, her resolve crystallized. She would not let fear or betrayal dictate her future. They stood together in the shadows of the alley, the flickering streetlight casting eerie shapes against the damp concrete walls. The world around them was a chaotic blend of sirens and distant shouts, but for Lila, it felt almost serene. Here, with Marco, she felt alive, even amidst the chaos. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his touch igniting a fire within her that she thought had been extinguished. "We need to leave," Marco urged, his eyes scanning the perimeter for any sign of danger. Although he was the notorious Mafia boss, the vulnerability in his gaze was palpable. It reminded Lila that beneath the hardened exterior was a man who also felt deeply, a man who had made mistakes but was willing to fight for redemption. Lila took a deep breath, the pain in her side a harsh reminder of the peril that surrounded them. "No, Marco," she insisted, her voice steady despite the blood that continued to stain her shirt. "We can't run away from this, not now, not after everything." Marco's expression darkened, a flicker of frustration crossing his features. "You're hurt. We need to get you to a hospital." She shook her head, determination flooding her veins. "I'm not leaving you to face this alone. We're in this together. You taught me that." Her words hung in the air, a challenge and a promise, all at once. For a moment, Marco seemed to wrestle with her resolve, the weight of his past bearing down on him. But then, the corner of his mouth quirked up in a half-smile, a mixture of admiration and admiration for her fierce spirit. "You really are something else, aren't you?" Lila shrugged, trying to downplay the compliment, but inside, she felt a swell of pride. It was true. She had transformed from the woman who initially sought a way out of the chaos into someone ready to embrace the storm. "Let's go, Marco. We have a score to settle." Together, they stepped out into the night, hearts pounding in unison. The streets of Chicago pulsed around them, alive with the echoes of their past and the uncertainty of their future. As they navigated the dimly lit back alleys, Lila felt a mix of adrenaline and fear coursing through her. She had never envisioned her life spiraling into this dark romance, yet here she was, standing shoulder to shoulder with the man who had come to mean so much to her. With every corner they turned, Lila could feel the weight of Marco's enemies closing in. Rival gangs lurked in the shadows, their intentions clear. They were not just threats to Marco, they were threats to everything Lila had fought for. The stakes were higher than ever, and she knew that this was the moment where true loyalty would be tested. As they approached an abandoned warehouse, Marco paused, gripping Lila's hand tightly. "You don't have to do this," he murmured, his brow furrowed with concern. "I can handle this. You should stay back." "Stop," Lila interjected, her voice firm. "You don't get to make that choice for me. I'm with you no matter what." They locked eyes, and in that moment, a silent understanding passed between them. There would be no backing down. They would face whatever, together. Inside the warehouse, the atmosphere was tense, filled with the promise of confrontation. The flickering fluorescent lights cast an unsettling glow on the faces of the men gathered, each one a potential enemy. Lila's heart raced as she and Marco stepped into the fray, ready to confront the demons of their past. "Marco!" A voice echoed from the shadows, and Lila's breath hitched. It was Victor, one of Marco's old associates turned rival. His eyes glinted with malice, and Lila could sense the animosity radiating from him. "I didn't expect to see you here, especially with the girl who thinks she can play in a man's world." Lila bristled at the insult, anger igniting within her. "I'm not afraid of you," she shot back, stepping forward to stand beside Marco. The moment felt electric as she faced Victor, unwilling to let anyone belittle her place in this world. "Is that so?" Victor sneered, advancing toward them. "You think you can protect him? He's the one who put you in danger. You should be running for the hills, not standing here risking your life for a man who doesn't deserve you." Marco tightened his grip on Lila's hand, his jaw clenched. "You don't know anything about her, Victor. You think you can intimidate us? You're mistaken." The tension escalated as Victor's followers shifted uneasily, sensing the volatility of the moment. Lila could feel the air thickening with unspoken threats, but she stood her ground, a fierce warrior ready to fight for what she believed in. "Let's settle this," Marco declared, his voice ringing with authority. "You want me? Come and take me, but leave her out of this." Lila's heart raced at his words, a mix of pride and fear flooding her veins. Marco was willing to sacrifice everything for her, and she knew she had to do the same. "No, Marco, we face them together," she insisted, her voice unwavering. The confrontation escalated into chaos, with shouts echoing through the warehouse as tensions boiled over. Lila fought beside Marco, their movements synchronized as they faced the oncoming threats. The adrenaline coursed through her, heightening her senses and fueling her determination. As the fight raged on, Leela found herself at a turning point. She realized that this was more than just a battle against Victor and his gang. It was a fight for their love, their future, and their lives. Every punch thrown and every kick landed brought her closer to understanding the depths of her own strength. In the midst of the chaos, Leela caught a glimpse of Marco. He was fighting fiercely, a warrior in his own right, but she could see the weight of guilt etched on his face. This was the moment where their past collided with their present, and she knew they would either emerge stronger or fall apart forever. With one final surge of energy, Leela charged toward Victor, adrenaline propelling her forward. "You think you can take him from me?" she shouted, her voice fierce. "You don't know what love is?" Victor sneered, but before he could respond, Leela's fist connected with his jaw, sending him sprawling. The impact reverberated through her, solidifying her resolve. This was her fight, and she would not back down. As the dust settled and the last of Victor's men retreated, Leela stood panting, heart racing as she looked around at the aftermath of their battle. Marco approached her, a mix of awe and admiration in his eyes. "You fought like a lion," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Leela smiled through the exhaustion, realizing that they had faced the darkness together and in doing so had forged an unbreakable bond. "We did this together, Marco. We're stronger than anything they throw at us." As they stood amidst the remnants of their confrontation, the realization washed over them like a wave. They had faced betrayal, danger, and fear, but through it all, they had emerged as allies in love and life. Leela's heart swelled with hope, knowing that their journey was far from over. In that moment, she understood the true essence of love. It was not merely about beautiful moments. It was about standing together in the face of adversity, about fighting for each other even when the odds seemed insurmountable. As they stepped outside into the cool night air, Leela felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had faced the darkness and come out stronger. "Let's make a new beginning, Marco," she suggested, her voice filled with determination. He nodded, a glimmer of hope shining in his eyes. Together. The streets of Chicago stretched before them, filled with uncertainty, yet brimming with possibility. Leela took Marco's hand, a silent promise that they would face whatever came next, side by side. As they walked into the night, Leela felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had fought for love, and now she was ready to embrace the journey ahead, knowing that together they could conquer anything. As the camera panned out, capturing the city skyline against the backdrop of the moonlit sky, the screen faded to black, leaving the audience with a sense of closure and the lingering question of what lay ahead for Leela and Marco. Did you think they would find their way through the darkness? Comment below what you think will happen next, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories about love, sacrifice, and redemption. The tale of Leela and Marco was just beginning, and the world was waiting to see what they will conquer next.